Hi, Misha here, and this is a impromptu Blackbox. This is October 6th, and a couple of people have asked me about the whole honey badger situation that's starting to kind of percolate around the interwebs. I don't really have much to say about it firsthand. I've never owned one of those. Just 300 blackouts, not really my thing. And at this point, I'm not really sure of the full story. I would love to actually read the actual ATF letter and all that. But just a little bit of quick gleaning about the situation and what's going on. And some thoughts here. I think Jay and I might do more of a general kind of status of the 2A together when the main channel's back from break. I don't know. We'll see. But for now, this is just kind of where I'm coming from and my thoughts. Please, in the comments, share any links. And keep in mind, this is being recorded on the night of October 6th. So who knows what may develop between this time now and when you're listening to this video. But yeah, feel free to comment and share your thoughts and expertise if you are involved in any way, because that's kind of what this is for. Just an impromptu thing to try to learn. And at the end of the video, this whole thing seems complicated. It's not. There's a very simple solution. But anyway, back in August, the ATF got a bit of a bee in its bonnet over the Q honey badger, which seems to be a AR style firearm, primarily in 300 blackout, with a short barrel, about 7 inches, so thus a pistol. And it seems like they come with a collapsing arm brace, although there is an SBR version that comes with a collapsing buttstock. There are many braced pistols on the market, but this is definitely one of the smaller ones. And that might be its problem. Why go after this gun in particular? Well, there's a couple of others that fall into the same camp, but the problem seems to be the old one we know and love. Overall length and arm braces. And the gun may just be kind of a victim of math. Because, on the one hand, it, when the brace is fully extended, has a length of pull of 13 inches or greater. On the other hand, the overall length of the pistol is still under 26 inches. Now, the numbers are arbitrary, they always are. The reason 26 is important, that's the minimum overall length allowed for a rifle or any other weapon, other type, or just quote-unquote firearm. It's this kind of determination, 26 inches being important, that allows us to have guns like the Mossberg Shockwave and the Remington TAC 14. Because even though they have barrels under 18 inches, which is the minimum length required for a shotgun, there's no such thing as a pistol shotgun. Shotguns are just shotguns, with 18 inches being the minimum length. They're able to do this not as a, quote, shotgun, but as a, quote, any other weapon, or, quote, firearm, as the verbiage is, because the overall length is greater than 26 inches. So it seems like if the honey badger, including the brace, were over 26 inches, there would not be a problem, at the best I'm reading it. And the good news there is, most braced pistols are over 26 inches. Because you have to be pretty small to be under that. That's a pretty generous requirement. I'm trying to think here. Yeah. Now, this could be wrong. Now, this is where I'm saying you can help me. When it comes to rifles, long arms, it was established way back in the 1980s that overall length is always and only measured with the stock fully deployed in a shooting type position. So, is it not the same with an arm brace? I would assume so, meaning when the arm brace is folded out or extended out, that's how you count it. Could be wrong on that, but with rifles, this is the case. It's kind of funny. If you look at the IMI Uzi, Model A's, Model B's, with their 16-inch barrels and stock collapsed, they're actually about 24 or 25 inches, which has caused some concern over the years, but they're perfectly legal. There's tens and tens of thousands out there, because you always measure with the stock fully out, and therefore it's well over 26 inches, not a problem. And this is the case with several other guns. As far as the 13-inch thing, this is something new. The ATF has kind of decided that 13 inches is a typical standard length of pull. So if you have a brace on a gun that, say, has a 11-inch length of pull, they look at it and say, okay, that's intended to be used as a quote-unquote arm brace. You know, where you strap it on your arm like you're Mega Man. But when the length of pull is greater than 13 inches, they say, look, the intention behind the arm brace isn't to strap it to your arm because it's too long for that. The intention is to put it against your shoulder. To wit, they've determined that the Honey Badger is an SBR, and therefore, since it's always been transferred up to this point as a standard Title I pistol, potentially not legal. So, what Honey Badger has said to its customers, A, it's stopped producing, and B, that they need to disassemble their gun or file for a SBR or whatever. There's no official turn-in notice at this point from the ATF or even any request from the factory. So there's nothing for users to be worried about at this moment, because it's in the courts system and doing all that good jazz. Is this an attack on arm braces? In a way, I almost hope so. Because the arm brace thing has been around for 10 years. It was originally legal, and they didn't care if you put it against your shoulder or whatever, because it was considered not a stock, so it didn't matter what you did with it. And then there was this weird determination a few years ago where it wasn't legal to shoulder it. So, perfectly legal on the gun, not illegal to touch to your shoulder. Basically, by touching it to your shoulder, you magically turned the arm brace into a shoulder stock. Well, then that was reversed, and they went back to saying, okay, it's legal, do whatever you want with it. And there was some talk that this maybe was only 100% ironclad true with the SB tactical braces, because they were the ones that literally had direct ATF approval, meaning that other brands may or may not be legal, like the little blade, the Shockwave blade you used to see. You don't see those much anymore because the newer SB tacticals are so great, but so it was basically legal, then not legal, then legal again. If they try to make it not legal again, let's just say this. If they go to court, if they try to prosecute a citizen for that, if your defense attorney can't get the case thrown out of court before it even goes to trial, your defense attorney sucks. Because any attorney worth his anything can look at a law like that that's been flip-flopped on multiple times and make a very good case for not only while the owner isn't legally liable, isn't a criminal, that this is just a stupid law that needs to be just ripped out of the books. Because if the government can't decide what is and isn't legal, if they keep changing their mind, then it should just be legal, period. No problems with it. Arm braces have been a thing for 10 years, give or take. To my knowledge, they've never really ever been used in a crime, because that was the whole thing when the bump stock ban came through a couple years ago, is it was alleged to be used in the Las Vegas shooting. That was the impetus to ban bump stocks. But there hasn't been any problems with someone with an arm brace. The only complaint the ATF can muster is they consider a gun under 26 inches to be readily concealable. So something like a honey badger, they consider to be too easily concealable. Now again, if it was over 26 inches, even if the barrel was under 16, it would probably fall more in the area like with the Shockwave. So the problem, and again, if it didn't have an arm brace, there wouldn't be a problem either, I don't think. But I could be wrong. This is kind of the point of contention. Pistols aren't required to have a minimum or a maximum barrel length in and of themselves, or a minimum maximum overall length in and of themselves. It seems like when you combine a pistol with an arm brace, that's when links come in to play. I'm not saying it's right, I'm just trying to untangle this knot even a little bit. And that's the problem. It's become so knotted up with arm braces and everything else over the years. SBR is not a new thing. It goes way back to 1934 in the National Firearms Act, one of the first major pieces of gun control legislation in this country. That's the one that made short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, sound suppressors, silencers as they were called back then, and of course machine guns. Not illegal, but they all had to be registered. They had to be put on a list of nationally registered names and serial numbers, and a person had to pay a $200 stamp tax, which was an exorbitant amount of money back then in the depths of the Great Depression. So they were basically trying to put a pay gate in front of it, you know? Would that be the original pay to play? Yeah, maybe so. I'm not sure. Maybe so. Well, this situation is still very much unfolding. No one has gone to court. No one is in trouble, so there's no worries there. But it's something to be mindful of. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out that all of this has happened during a Republican presidency. And this comes on the heels of things like the bump stock ban. Make of that as you will. But in my opinion, what Trump has essentially done for any kind of firearms rights is what Trump always does. Talks a lot and does very little. He is very, very good at those things. Very good indeed. Just food for thought there, folks. This situation is quite absurd. Because, for one thing, people buy such things on good faith. No problems. They haven't been shown to be used in crimes, anything like that. And some might say, well, why do you need it? it doesn't matter. This isn't a country where you're supposed to say why you need something before you can have it. The burden is to prove why someone isn't safe with something or why they don't need it. And the simple evidence is these things are not being used in crimes at all. Not just on a low rate, but they're not being used on crimes at all. The simple answer is get rid of SBRs. Take them off the whole Class 3 list. Make them no longer need to be registered. That would kind of solve everything. Wouldn't have to worry about arm braces. Wouldn't have to worry about foregrips, overall links, weird in-between categories like the shockwaves. Nothing. Just make them regular guns. Make them pistols if you like, because pistols are a little more regulated and legislated than rifles. But these things aren't the problem. They're not being used in crimes. And they're certainly no more lethal. Having a short barrel, if anything, makes a gun less lethal. But I know I'm preaching to the choir. But that would solve everything now, wouldn't it? Talk about something Trump could do right before the election to secure votes. Because this is all under the purview of the presidency. The ATF is part of the Treasury and all of that, and that's pretty much directly and indirectly under the president. I'm not saying that it's something he actively did, but he could very easily make it not happen. Okay, that explains that. I was hearing a thump, and it's a cat on a roof. Hello. Hi. It's a Blackbox video, otherwise you'd see cat. Anyway, I digress. So, while Trump probably had nothing to do with this directly, he has made some recent changes to the way the ATF is kind of administrated. A lot more responsibility and culpability is put on agents now for things they approve. So if an agent approves a gun or a device and it comes back later as illegal, he is on the line for his judgment. And that's made a lot of agents more skittish, understandably. And actually this ruling on the honey badger so far hasn't come from the main ATF home, big kahuna. This is still, at least right now as far as I know, from a field agent's assessment. And I have to think that the current attitude is because of the way things are kind of, the atmosphere, let's say, at the ATF now. And that is directly related to the executive, the White House, how things are being done. And that is in direct response to the Las Vegas incident. Keep in mind that in a press conference that you can still watch on YouTube, Trump, and I'm paraphrasing, but this is what he said, was let them come take all the guns, and if people want them back, they can go to court and fight for them. That's what he said. Make of that as you will. Me, I found it deplorable. That's literally the opposite of how a free society is run. The government should not have power to take your property, especially without compensation. But even with compensation, they just shouldn't have the right to take your property unless there's a damn good reason. I mean, a really good reason. Unless you owning that property is a direct threat to your community. Anyway, this will be unfolding, I'm sure, for a while. It doesn't seem to be directly targeted at arm braces, but rather at guns designed from the outset, pistols, I should say, designed from the outset with an integral arm brace. They don't seem to, as of right now, and of course, give them an inch to take them out type situation. But they don't seem to be going against guns like, say, the Zastava M92 pistol, which the arm brace is kind of bolted on the end, or sandwiched between the pistol. It's very clear the gun was designed without the arm brace in mind, and then people have found ways to bolt on the arm brace. But something like the Honey Badger, and other guns too, they have specific brackets and attachments on the receiver to allow for the arm brace. So I think that might be the whole point, because the ATF's central argument here is that it is designed to be fired from the shoulder. Not that it can be, but that's its primary use. And as people have pointed out, Q, the company, hasn't helped themselves because they had pictures and videos of people firing it up against their shoulder, and that was probably pretty silly to put it on the actual manufacturer's website. It's probably one thing when a private third party does it, but when the manufacturer shows it on their website, yeah, that does kind of show intent. I'm not trying to defend the situation. Again, my solution is simply get rid of SBRs and let guns have the barrel lengths they need to have, because barrel length is not a thing. It doesn't matter. It's just a relic of an archaic time. I mean, for the love of God, when the NFA was passed, Jim Crow was still in effect. Separate but equal, segregation, rampant fucking racism. And we've done our best to get rid of that. Heck, that's going back so far that it was nearly back in the time when the Republicans were the Progressive Party and the Democrats were the Liberal Party. Okay, not really. The change had happened already before. But, just 2 decades earlier, you had Woodrow Wilson in the White House, so that's special. But, it's an archaic rule that doesn't save lives, that doesn't do anything, and just makes life more complicated and stunts commerce at a time when our economy needs all the help it can get. Speaking of that, one funny thing is people say, oh, maybe the ATF's doing this to stimulate checks for the $200 to file it for an SBR, because you can still do that. To that I say balls. They're a government agency, people. It probably costs them, paying agents, $300 to process the paperwork. You know how government agencies with all their inefficiencies and layers and paperwork are. I don't think they're making money on it, because they're still having to pay people by the hour, and somehow I know they're losing money on it, or at least breaking even. They're certainly not making money. If they were a company, maybe they would, but they're not, because government. As far as what to do, like I said, no one needs to worry. No one's coming to your door. No one's breaking down your door to take the gun. If you have just a regular pistol lower, AR pistol lower, just take the upper, put it on it, whatever. Take it off. I mean, if you want, separate your Honey Badgers for now. I wouldn't run out and SBR it, not unless you just wanted to do that already. I wouldn't turn them in or anything like that, because this isn't over yet. There hasn't been an official recall notice until the ATF is sending out letters to individual citizens telling them that their property is no longer legal. Until that happens, you're not... Yeah, I mean, it's just because the company says something... Yeah. Now, when the ATF tells you directly, hey, this isn't legal, blah, 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 then you have to make a decision. I know it's not right, but that's just how the law is. But they haven't done that yet. They haven't gone to that point yet. So, no reason to worry. Just be mindful. And we'll see how this plays out and how this might affect future arm braces. And I'll be honest, the historical precedent is kind of on our side. a few things come to mind. The G series FALs, those 1,800 so, the people that were originally full autos that were converted to semi in Britain and then sold here, and then they were originally okay, and then they were next were called machine guns. When it went to trial, the judge ruled, quite correctly, that they had purchased them in good faith. The ATF had approved them as semi-autos and had no right to go back on their word. So not only did he order that the owners weren't in violation of the law, he ordered that their property be returned, and now you can still see G-Series FALs on Gunbroker every day. They're perfectly legal. They're grandfathered in. You know, there's a specific list of serials. But, yeah. Also, in the 1980s or late 80s, early 90s, a batch of British L1A1s came in for police use, but they came in as Title I firearms and weren't classified as machine guns. And so those were illegal and have been allowed to be legal for years too. In 2011, there was a huge stink. People thought that they were going to ban the Russian Izhmash Sega 12 shotgun, specifically. And not only did they not ban it, as people were afraid of, the ATF came back, and the ruling came back saying that not only was a magazine-fed shotgun legal, that actually having a pistol grip on a shotgun was a legitimate sporting feature, and that's why today you can import a shotgun, a semi-automatic shotgun with a pistol grip, even though you can't import a semi-automatic rifle. So it actually got better. That's what led to the Vepr 12 coming over and more police-style Sega 12s. Not quite as positive, but still, in the past, when guns have snuck in as illegal machine guns, however the ATF defines it, they don't arrest people. They just issue a recall notice. This happened in the 90s with some Chinese AKs that came in with a third pinhole, even if it was welded up. Also a batch of Zastava M76s. In more recent times, in 2015, a batch of IWI Galils came in with not just a third pinhole, but a third pin in it, even though nothing was on the pin. And nothing happened. All that happened there was we got a call saying, look, we need to turn the guns back in, ship them back, and we were given an offer of a free refund, a full refund, I mean. All you had to do is show the purchase receipt, or a free replacement once they fix the problem. So there was no threats, no anything. The only thing the ATF said then was, hey, we're not going to fall for the excuse of we went out boating and it fell overboard. They're like, no, we're going to have the gun back, or very clear evidence it was destroyed. And, of course, most recently, as I published on this channel last year, Classic Firearms imported a batch of PSLs from Romania that still had the third pin, even though it was an out-of-battery safety. And again, there was just a gentle recall, and no citizens got in trouble. I bet the importers probably got a spanking, but you as the end user, you did nothing wrong. You bought a honey badger or whatever on good faith. So even if they determine these are illegal SBRs, you'll probably be given a grace period, 3 months, 6 months, whatever, to either file SBR paperwork or, do something with it. Or maybe even just remove the fucking arm brace. I mean, that seems like the easiest solution to me, at least temporarily. Just take the arm brace off. No problem then, maybe? I don't know. I'm just saying. So don't worry, you're not doing anything wrong. This is definitely a worry for the company, Q. I feel for them. But maybe it's good this finally gets to court, because this situation is getting more and more absurd on a daily basis. And right before the election, too. Don't get me wrong, not a Biden supporter. His position on firearms is clear. But here's the thing. This isn't a black-white on-off world. Just because one candidate is anti-gun doesn't automatically make the other candidate pro-gun. I think that's the thing we've kind of forgotten in recent years. You could have two candidates that aren't really standing for either of your interests. I mean, Biden is, anti-gun. Trump is probably not anti-gun. I just don't think he cares. I don't think he cares at all. So if it's easy for him to give it up, if he can win some brownie points with whoever, or just, stir the pot, he'll give it up. He's already done it. Bump stocks again. But, yeah, I think we have to face the facts that neither team's really on our side. I think this is what we need to face, guys. If anything, the biggest people on our sides lately have been the judiciary, the court system. We've won more battles in court in the last few years than anywhere on the political realm. Just some thoughts. Again, this is kind of an open-ended letter type video, just some ramblings about what I've seen so far. Feel free to post updates in the comments, or tell me where I'm wrong, or tell me your opinions, because again, this is just kind of a brainstorming session. And with that, I believe I will let you go. As always, if you could, like, share, and subscribe. And if you haven't, check out our main channel over at Mishaco. This is Misha, and I'll catch you very soon next time.